Mahalo i tala, i naua hine o ke kai. Mahalo e papa nau motu, i pai aina e ola mai. Mahalo i mahina, le kuhi mana i ike mai. Mahalo, mahina nui, i mai tāpō, i te au. Mahalo i a kako, e mana o pono, e na au. Mahalo he mele nei, e hula pā, e ho'o pono pono. Thank you, great Creator, who stands behind all things. And thank you to the sky, Father, and the Spirit in the water. And thank you to the grandfather, son, and to the woman who is the seed. And thank you to the earth mother, in whom we all reside. And thank you to the grandmother moon, who brings us the time and the tides. And thank you to the great-grandmother, who from the darkness of space will bring us the light. And thank you, all of you, for what you think is right, and for the way you feel. And thank you for the songs, and thank you for the dance. Thank you for the time to heal. Mahalo ke akua. Na uhani i koa. Thank you, great Creator, and the Spirit of the One. Thank you, all of you, for coming together in this way as family. As family. As family. We appreciate this great day. We're going to have a great day. Yo! Yo! Like it, man. Like it. Like it. Yo!
Welcome to the 2022 Global Breadfruit Summit.
This is a very, very special gathering because at no time have we had so many stars present. So for those of you who have honored the region and in many ways honored the world, mahalo, mahalo for your support. What makes you different from everybody else is that you're self-evident, not self-proclaimed. It is my honor to introduce and a demonstration of commitment of the University of Hawaii amongst highest advisors and counselors and leaders for our university system. So we have present with us the Vice Chair of the University of Hawaii Board of Regents. All policy, development, and actions occur at that level. May I present Vice Chair of the University of Hawaii Board of Regents, Ernie Wilson.
Mahalo, my brother Tusi, and aloha kako to all of you here. Many of you were here yesterday as we honored the Stars of Oceania, the 20-some that were honored yesterday. And to those of you that are here for the first time today, I especially welcome you. On behalf of the Board of Regents and President Lassler and the entire faculty, staff, administration of the University of Hawaii, I welcome you to this Ulu Festival. I think the last time we did this live was, what, 3 years ago, Tusi? Yes. Out at Polynesian Cultural Center. So it was 2019 was the last one we had. So this is especially a very auspicious, I guess, gathering that we were able to do it again live. And I think the fact that so many of you joined us here, including the ones that came yesterday and all of you who come from the far reaches of the Pacific. You know, I tell people in the position I have on the board, I said, you know, I have a vision for the University of Hawaii system, and it's to be the premier institution for education and research within the entire Pacific region and beyond. And I think that what you will hear and what you will learn today is evident of the kind of work and focus that we at the university have to really begin to bring together, particularly in topics like today, food security, tremendously important to all of us throughout the world, but particularly the effort that have been made to hear that we have 80,000 farmers that are part of the group that have been assembled and come together over the years throughout the entire Pacific, I think, is really a testament to the meeting the need, if you will, for ensuring that we have food security. Because, you know, all we have to do is look throughout the world and see. And particularly, I think the thing that gets to me is the fact that when we talk about things like rising tides, global warming, and so forth, you know, these are issues. And I think with the kind of research and work that we're doing at university, you know, our focus is on being the thought leaders. And we have the staff and faculty in particular, both researchers and people that are just teaching within the entire UH system to begin to work together with you. And those of you that know Dr. Tusi know he's been a part of that effort in trying to bring everyone in the Pacific together. And like to, first of all, acknowledge and thank him for that. So let's give him a round of applause for what he's done. You know, and one of the things, President Lassner was here yesterday, for those of you that were here, so he followed up after I spoke briefly. And so afterwards I told him, I said, you know, Tusi wants to retire. He said, what? He said, we can't let him retire. I said, what are we going to do? I said, well, you know, it's maybe time. But in any case, you know, there are many of you out there who are working tirelessly together over the years with Tusi. and too many of you that I've met over the years really to mention here, but you'll get to meet one another for those of you that are here for the first time. So again, welcome you to have a tremendous day of learning and sharing all of your mana'o. So, mahalo.
One of the greatest pleasures I had over the years is meeting and engaging with extraordinary people. What I had never anticipated 20 years later is that these extraordinary people are all stars of Oceania. I'd like to introduce your keynote speakers, who themselves, again, have achieved that exalted level where you are self-evident and not self-proclaimed. Dr. Diane Ragone started her research and interest in a fruit-bearing tree. At the time, it didn't seem very glamorous, but today may mean the difference between survival and not survival. She launched, whether she intended to or not, a revolution that is now beginning to expand rapidly around the world when people can understand the value of this fruit-bearing tree, the most resilient, I believe, on earth. It can grow within 10 feet of the ocean where no other plants can, and it can still produce. It's my honor and privilege to introduce distinguished professor, Dr. Diane Ragone.
Good morning. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here, to see so many people that I've known for many years on this journey and to meet so many new people. So let me just figure what I hit. Enter? Okay, great. So breadfruit, as you know, is an abundant, productive, long-lived tree. And there are numerous varieties, hundreds of varieties in the Pacific Islands, the home of breadfruit. And breadfruit connects people across all the islands in the Pacific. And it is, as Dr. Tusi said, a resilient, long-lived tree that's part of the landscape, part of agroforestry systems, part of regeneration. And I think with our work and many other people's work, breadfruit can play an important and profound role in helping resolve and deal with some of the severe issues of climate change that we face every day. And in addition to the food that it grows, it is a multi-purpose tree. So canoes, beautiful carvings, medicines, so many other values to this tree. But most importantly, breadfruit is a nutritious, easy to grow, staple food. It's high in carbohydrates. It is low in protein, but the protein is a complete protein, which is very important. And it's high in many of the essential nutrients that are essential to children's health and well-being and to adult health and well-being. And so very nutritious. And as many people in the Pacific Islands and other places know, our diets are killing us. And so adopting or readopting traditional diets and traditional foods is so important. And you'll hear about that during the summit today, people who are doing that work, like Adelino and the island food community of Ponape. So there have been projects and gatherings of people over the years. The first one really was in 2007, the first international symposium on breadfruit research and development that was held in Fiji. How many of you were at that meeting at that time? Kyle, you were there. That was a really inspiring meeting. It brought together people from 20 regions in the Pacific, the Caribbean, and Africa. And it laid a blueprint for us on what to do going forward. And it's interesting now to see breadfruit people embracing so many of those ideas and programs and taking them forward. Took a while, but it's happening. And then there was another conference in 2015. How many people were at that meeting in Jamaica, not Jamaica, in Trinidad, where we continued this discussion, and 40 people came to talk about breadfruit. And then, of course, here in Hawaii and here in the Pacific, what's happened. And I was remiss at the beginning in not thanking Dr. Tusi and the Pacific Business Center and breadfruit people for everything you've done to host and organize this meeting. And give them a round of applause for this, because it's extraordinary to see this gathering of people today. But here in the Pacific, we've had 4 or 5 breadfruit summits here in Hawaii now. There were 2 in Samoa, the American Samoas, in 2012 and 2014. You have regional programs at Party that was supported by Australia. You have the co-ops, and I think talking more about co-ops and cooperatives, like the Breadfruit Cooperative based on the Big Island. The one in Fiji is a real model for networking and how can we gather together or really work together to accomplish this. And I think that's going to be one of the topics of a panel, is discussing this. And then, of course, the Pacific Farmers Association, a big group of people are here today, and the impact that they have in that gathering together of people. So there's so many things that have happened over the years, the past 10, 20, 30 years, to bring breadfruit forward, to bring us all together. But there's one big challenge, and that challenge has not been our will or our commitment or our desire. It is always the short-term nature of funding, the funding cycles that are 3 years, maybe 5 years. And so how do we fund and continue moving forward with this work and so that it perpetuates and benefits everybody, especially the people in the islands? And then here in Hawaii with the Ha'ulu Ka'ulu project with Craig Elovich and I and a couple of other people. Auntie Shirley sadly can't be here today, but the work that was done starting in 2010 to really help revitalize breadfruit in Hawaii and bring more awareness to it. So a lot of the work that has come out of that is really exciting. So institutionally, what the Breadfruit Institute started in 2009, we wanted to distribute. We identified some good varieties out of our collection, and we wanted to distribute them because of the profound issues of hunger on the planet. Over 1 billion hungry people, and over 2 billion people have micronutrient deficiencies. And so through collaborations with Global Breadfruit and now Tissue Grown, we just have distributed over 100,000 trees to more than 40-some countries. And 5 varieties were available for large-scale distribution, and that has changed. And as part of this distribution, we entered into agreements of understanding with the countries of origin of a variety for benefit sharing. So for every dollar we would receive, we would share 50% of that with the country of origin to recognize the indigenous rights of the country of origin. So I just want to give you a couple of examples of some of this work out of Costa Rica. And I know there are models and ideas and similarities for what's happening in the Pacific, and how do we scale this up? How do we make it impact our local communities? First and foremost, how do we keep economic benefits within the communities? How can we feed people in the communities and, importantly, earn income that will support these communities and scale that up? So in Costa Rica, they got some of this young man was a student at Earth University. He got excited about breadfruit. He brought some trees in through our Global Hunger Initiative, planted them at the university for his undergraduate degree, planted a regenerative agroforest, and then he and a group of people started a project called the Jungle Project. There were already some breadfruit trees in Costa Rica, but they've started training, distributing trees, training farmers, and now producing products. And they're producing flour and they're producing chips. But it all is based around farmer support and training and diversification. Trees That Feed Foundation, many of you have heard of them. They started working with us. They got from before we ever had tissue culture trees available. Trees That Feed, they're in Chicago. They've worked in about 18 countries, distributing trees and putting together projects. And the way that Haiti is a marvelous example. So trees go to a little nursery. The trees go to farmers. Farmers produce the fruit. They go to 8 hubs, 2 of which have bakeries, and they're simple solar dryers. They bake something called a comparette, which is a local little biscuit. And they have a women's empowerment program where they train the women. They give them a loan. They give them the first comparettes to sell. They have scores of women now working. One woman distributes about 5,000 of these. They sell them for a month. They sell these for the same price as a wheat-based similar product. And they also train them and educate them on nutrition and agroforestry. And then that creates more community interest and awareness because you empower women, you empower a society. And then that drives more demand for farmers wanting more trees. And the hubs that can't bake a product produce a porridge. And porridge is the basic breakfast meal for every child in every school and orphanage in the country. And it used to be cornmeal based and often is imported cornmeal. They make a breadfruit porridge that goes to the schools and the orphanages. And they distribute about 300 trees a month now to farmers. So this is something they built over about a decade, small scale. But there are models, I think, for every community to do this and do it at a larger scale. But the theme for all of this is there has to be a central hub to help take fruit from the farmers. So the farmers can do what they do best, which is grow the food and grow good quality food and be able to have a processing facility that they can take it to and that will pay the farmers a fair price for their fruit so they can stay in what they do best and want to do best, and that's farm. So you have the traditional market selling fresh fruit throughout the region, and you're seeing more and more of that in Hawaii and other places. But what's really exciting is over the past decade, seeing all the value-added products. And breadfruit is wonderful, but breadfruit is a perishable fruit. And it is starchy and mature, and then it gets soft and sweet and right. Now, if you're John Cadman, you make those fabulous Pono pies, and there are lots of things you can do with ripe, soft breadfruit, but you still have to process it in some way. What made all the work that's being done globally possible with breadfruit flour is the foundational work that Dr. Susan Murch and her team did in Canada, in that they got the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, to recognize breadfruit flour as generally recognized as safe. This was about 4 years ago. And prior to that, breadfruit was considered a dangerous product and could not be imported into the United States. And because of their work, and it's like writing a master's thesis, they got the regulatory hurdle overcome. And so now any of these people, if you can read them, Puerto Rico, any other country can now import breadfruit flour into the United States, which is a huge market. And Dr. Murch's team was also foundational in the tissue culture work. She is not here today, but I think we all owe a huge debt of gratitude to Dr. Murch and her team. So just look at some of these products and where they're from. You know, Puerto Rico, Tahiti, I don't have my glasses on, the Seychelles. Breadfruit flour on a small scale is happening around the world. And here in Hawaii and other places, a huge diversity of products. So ulu chips, bagels, Pono pies, tostones, fries, mutiny, vodka. There's one bottle left from the batch yesterday. And at one time, a breadfruit beer. So it's really exciting to see entrepreneurs embracing breadfruit. And then Patagonia came in and gave the garden a very generous support, and it continues over the past 5 years. And Noelle Dickinson, who you'll hear from, is the manager of this wonderful regenerative agroforestry project that Craig Elovich helped guide and implement. has funded this, and they funded a breadfruit cracker, and that cracker, the flour is sourced out of Costa Rica from Jungle Product, but they also put together a lot of information on their website to help really raise some, through their recognized brand, recognition of breadfruit. So there's a lot of stuff happening around commercialization and development of breadfruit, which is very important, but I want to go back to my roots on why I started working on breadfruit, and what I would like to ask everyone in this group to do and to think about going forward is why conserve breadfruit diversity and biocultural knowledge? Why was it important in the mid-'80s when I started working on this, and why is it just as important now, if not more so? Weather, extreme weather. All of you from the islands have gone through some horrific cyclone and hurricane events in recent years. The droughts, the devastation to trees, and the loss of information and knowledge. We heard so much yesterday about grandparents and parents teaching their children. And if that knowledge is not taught and transmitted about breadfruit and its uses and how it's grown, that knowledge will disappear, and a lot of values, important value to the culturals and to our appreciation of breadfruit will disappear. And so it's still important today to recognize that so much of this knowledge still exists. So I implore all of you, if you haven't already, when you go back home, sit down with your parents and your grandparents, if you're lucky enough to still have them alive, and make a list of questions and ask them about breadfruit, everything they can tell you about breadfruit and other crops and other practices. They will be so delighted that you were interested. And have your children, if you have children, ask you and ask them. And that's so important to do, to capture and keep that information going. So we have conserved 150 varieties at the Breadfruit Institute, at the National Tropical Botanical Garden in Hawaii, and it's a tremendous responsibility to maintain and to keep these trees. There are many collections in the regions in past years that disappeared, but we've extensively studied and evaluated those to learn more about breadfruit. But what that work has done, and what I think is important going forward, and it's wonderful to see, and many of the people in this room have been involved in that, is how many countries have taken this path and we're looking at putting together collections and documenting the varieties and information in their countries. And I'm not going to read you the list, but there are several people in this room who have worked on these projects. So it ranges from, the Western Pacific, Fiji and Vanuatu, to Micronesia, in Yap, and all the way to the Caribbean. So this is what I implore all of you. The commercialization, the development of breadfruit as a food crop, as a product, hopefully for regenerative agriculture, will continue. But what's so important is to continue with the cultural knowledge that still remains throughout the Pacific Islands. So I'd like to thank all of you, and what I'd really like to express is I really am so grateful that this Pacific community welcomed a young woman from Virginia into your community, and have embraced me for 40 years. And so thank you. It's been a wonderful journey, and it's going to keep going.
On a personal note, 15 years ago, I was 280 pounds. I'm now 270. The major shift occurred when I was told by my doctor, you need to change your diet. And I had no understanding of what high glycemic. I thought it was a glue for airplanes. Gluten-free, what these terms meant, but they were present in my traditional diet. And so I returned back to my traditional diet. Basically, it's breadfruit, taro, and bananas, and it's made a whole difference. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. One of the greatest personal achievements that I feel with the work that we do was trying to fill that hole in the donut. And part of filling it is filling it with the kinds of individuals and organizations that can make the difference, and they have. Trying to get the Pacific Oceania into the level of consideration of not only the university, but of the nation, was quite a daunting task. I think we are more than able, now that when this organization became a partner to the Pacific Business Center, and we submitted this partnership to the National University Economic Development Association, an association of universities, research institutions, and government agencies. They meet annually, and they accept submissions and nominations for national standing as awards of excellence. Last Tuesday, an award of excellence was awarded to the Pacific Islands Farmers Association, a partner of the Pacific Business Center program at the University of Hawaii. Responsible greatly for that relationship and contact is our next keynote speaker, who was in Texas with me and accepted the national award, not only on behalf of the university, but on behalf of the Pacific. And it's great to see that our region is now part of the national as well as the university conversation. Mr. Kyle Stice.
Good morning, everyone. What a cool group of people, and what an honor to be able to come and to share the stage and to just share what we've been learning and what we've been doing. And thank you, Dr. Tusi and Diane and Craig and Kalani and Ernie from the university for helping to bring this event together. I'm just going to talk a little bit about our efforts to try, as Dr. Tusi said, to bring the region together around this common crop of breadfruit. I think many of you know that this is a region where 70% of the population live in rural areas, and farming and fishing is the primary source of livelihood. And climate change and food security, these are the biggest and most important challenges of our generation. And if you are interested in the latest and I believe the most synthesized information about what are the likely impacts of climate change on agriculture, I point you to this publication by SPC called The Vulnerability of Pacific Island Agriculture and Forestry to Climate Change. It's a very important research based on the science, but most importantly, it highlights what are some of the opportunities. And many of you know we're experiencing climate change now, but as the science tells us, it's going to increase over time. And especially weather extremes. Extreme heat, extreme drought, extreme rain, just extremes. And many farmers in the room know that we don't like extremes, and the plants that we grow don't like extremes. But it's not just about what climate change is going to do in our countries, but what climate change is doing outside of our region, and particularly the impact on global staples. And many of you know that the Pacific Islands consumes an enormous amount of imported staples, primarily imported wheat flour and imported rice. And the science tells us that rice and wheat production are going to be significantly impacted by climate change. And so the challenge is for us to be able to respond to the threats facing our agriculture, but also be aware of what's going on in our food systems globally, because we are an interdependent world now. But the encouraging note is that Pacific Island staple crops are likely to be more resilient. I just want to share with you some reality, and this is not just about climate change, but also the war on Ukraine. Wheat flour price in Fiji, $10 for a 10 kg bag 18 months ago. Presently, it's $17 for a 10 kg bag. If you are a family of 8 and you are dependent on making buns for your children to go to school to take with them, this is a significant impact on your livelihood. And this is going to continue to increase. FAO is projecting increases in food and fuel in the Pacific to rise between 8 and 22% over the next 24 months. If you're a family, again, living on the edge and dependent on buying food from the store, these are very worrying figures. But it's not all bad news. And our farmer organization network is proposing that enhancing our domestic food systems is a key policy response to help us address both climate change and food security. And this is about taking advantage of or capitalizing on this comparative advantage and shifting towards these traditional staples. So just really quickly, because I live and breathe farmer organizations, we believe that farmers, helping farmers, is a key opportunity to address these threats and the opportunities. Because farmer organizations, they're most uniquely situated to understand the needs of their members. We often have a lot of people talking about farmers, but farmers not talking for themselves. Farmer organizations, they help government, academia, and development partners to extend their reach. The models of centralized research and universities and government doing the extension, it's inadequate to solve these problems. We need new partnerships, and farmers helping each other, farmers bringing their innovations is an important part of this paradigm shift. And as I mentioned, farmers having a voice. So I'm not going to talk much about our network, but if you want to meet some interesting people, 2 tables in the back representing our farmer organization members. We are now in 13 Pacific Islands. So our members are not individual farmers, but our members are farmer organizations. And we start as far west as Timor-Leste and coming as far east as the Cook Islands. I'm so proud to have 8 of our countries represented here today. And thank you, yeah. And we're going to be hearing from them, from Fiji and Tonga and Samoa and Marshall Islands and Kiribati and the Cook Islands. And it's just going to be an amazing time. But again, I just want to share that farmers working together is a model that can help us extend the reach. And our network brings together this collective reach of about 90,000 farmers because they're a part of farmer organizations. So I hope everyone here is part of a farmer organization. If there's no farmer organization where you are, maybe you think about forming one because we believe it's an important part of the kind of development. This is our family. Farmer organizations met in Fiji just before 2019. Okay, I'm not going to talk too much about what we do, but it's basically about supporting information sharing. And Diane showed this picture, and I'm going to show it again because I was working in a cooperative starting in 2005, doing work on breadfruit, and I was in complete isolation. I had no information about how do we solve the problems related to growing breadfruit and processing breadfruit. And then I came to this conference as a representative from the cooperative, and it opened my eyes to how much information is out there and how many people are passionate. And as Diane said, that kind of spurred something inside of me that said, we want to continue to be able to bring people together. So farming is a lonely profession. It really is. And research is a lonely profession. And when we come together and when we share not only ideas but enthusiasm and get each other excited, it can be a powerful tool. Research. So it's a great opportunity, and I'm so privileged to have everybody here today, because I believe that people are going to leave here not only with more information but more excitement. So we've been doing this work. A flagship of what we do is farmer-to-farmer exchanges. So bringing farmers together, and we do this all across the Pacific, hosting a number of events. And then quickly about the Breadfruit People, which is a kind of a virtual network and then now a little bit of a face-to-face network. If you haven't been a part, we have a range of webinars, of resources from all of the partners that are here today are contributing, and we also are supporting just information sharing, learning, and collaboration. So check it out, breadfruitpeople.com. I think critical to this and critical to even what we're doing today are these values of transparency, reciprocity, and a strong emphasis on traditional knowledge. And I'm excited about the next panel who is going to be able to share their cultural perspectives on breadfruit. And of course that we need to make sure that our information that we're sharing is vetted and it's accurate for all of us. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. Please reach out if you're interested in Pacific Farmer Organizations or Breadfruit People, and I hope that you enjoy the summit today. Thank you.
This next individual is very, in fact, it conjures a rather amusing recollection. He was originally from the Silicon Valley and was accepted at Cornell to work on a PhD on information technology. While doing that, he happened to visit Hawaii, and an interesting romance occurred that he was totally unprepared for, and I think the other one who was receiving that special energy was merely waiting for him. He fell in love with a tree.
Strange.
Amazingly, he dropped his PhD focus on information technology and totally focused on the tree. And this tree is the breadfruit tree and agroforestry. He worked on it for years, and his professors were concerned he's going to lose his opportunity to finish his PhD because he switched it to agroforestry and trees. Amazingly, because of the work he did and he shared, they were able to modify his prospectus and then enable him to use his work and research on the tree to earn his PhD from Cornell. He has made an amazing impact in the state of Hawaii and the world with his research. Unfortunately, Auntie Shirley, who was part of the guiding light in his journey, could not be here with us today. But I'll let him share his observations, his passion, and his love for trees. Dr. Greg Elovich.
Mahalo, Doc, so much. It's a great honor to be here. And Auntie Shirley conveys her deep disappointment that she couldn't be here today. But Kalani has offered to fill her shoes. And so I gave him notes so that he stays on track. So we're here today to celebrate the generosity and abundance of breadfruit.
Now, breadfruit has its origins in the Pacific Islands. I mean, most of us know this, the story, different stories of Ku. The indigenous people consider breadfruit to be more than just a crop. It's an ancestor. It's family.
We have witnessed over the past 3 decades the demise of large-scale plantation agriculture in Hawaii and most of the Pacific Islands.
You know, plantation agriculture, as we all know, is leaving a devastating path throughout the Pacific. Environmental degradation, ecocide, some people have called it. And it turns our fertile islands into deserts.
So many of us in this room have as our mission to not only harvest the bounty of breadfruit, but to give back to the breadfruit and its companion crops in full measure.
Yeah, in fact, our job is to give back more than we take. Wait a second, Craig. This is the same script we used in 2018. I don't forget anything. You guys know me. I never forget anything.
What do you mean? What do you mean, Kalani?
I mean, this is the same notes. It's the same thing we did. I remember this statement exactly, saying it exactly this way. You know?
Kalani, it says clearly right here, recycled material from 2018.
Oh, I get it. We're just trying to demonstrate sustainability and regenerative recycling in ideas.
So, I'm not trying to trick you, Kalani.
Are you
okay?
sure about that?
I'm not trying to trick you. It just feels like we've said it all before.
We have said it all before.
In 2011, 2013, 2014.
All the way to 2018. That's like 7 years of saying the same stuff.
So what can we tell people that we haven't already said, or Doc Tusi, or many people in this room have said before?
You know, I know exactly what he means. What can we say that we haven't said?
For example, we've talked about the risks of monoculture. We've talked about how growing crops in a single cropping system can lead to more severe pest and disease
You're
outbreaks.
talking about the devastating impacts of doing monoculture that, in fact, ends up creating the new pathogens that then employ the pharma companies to try and figure out some way around the new disease, kind of like rapid ohia death.
That's right, and we've talked all many times about reminding people about the wisdom of indigenous Pacific Islanders growing breadfruit in sustainable, not only sustainable, but regenerative agroforestry. And we can use those systems combined with modern knowledge to regenerate our degraded ecosystems.
Right, you are, Captain. And that's how we do it. We can use indigenous knowledge. We can use the knowledge passed on generationally from our grandparents to create a kind of a new and diverse breadfruit-based food products, new ways to grow breadfruit. There's no reason why we shouldn't integrate the modern technology into thinking, but let's not lose the roots that got us here to begin with.
Right, and we've also reminded people of how resilient breadfruit is to weather extremes and how we can grow it together in a crop portfolio to resist some of the extremes that we're facing in our weather systems.
Wow, you mean that breadfruit could literally be the low-hanging fruit that we reach for to solve these food security problems and what we see happening with climate change. So combined in a holistic planting of many diversified crops all together, breadfruit can form the basis for the new food security at the household, at the village, at the community level.
We also suggested many times that economic priorities need to change and shift in the post-plantation era. To address economics, we prioritize local food first. The beauty of breadfruit is that it can satisfy local markets and in the peak seasons, supply export markets.
Yeah, and who will lead this new economic development? Those who value small-scale, community-engaged entrepreneurship, grassroots farmer organizations, micro-enterprises, incredibly creative culinary artisans are at the heart of the movement.
We've also talked about creating a certificate of origin combined with traceability to ensure that small local islands are not overrun by cheap imported breadfruit products.
Yeah, and we've cautioned that breadfruit as a native crop needs strong legal protection against interests that would love to patent and grab the IPO of its genetics and make it the property of self-serving corporations.
You know, I'm not sure what else we can say. Ultimately, it comes down to our values, our inner operating system, how we relate to each other and to the breadfruit.
That's right. We need a shift in perspective, away from business as usual to cooperation. That's really all that's needed. A shift from entitlement to responsibility for our children, for our children, for our children. We need a shift. We need to move towards community health and to the well-being of the natural world.
If we look out at our participants today, many have already moved beyond our wildest dreams in working with breadfruit in a right way.
Yes.
Thank you all for being here with us these few days. As Kalani always says, we're not going to do this as institutions. We're not going to do this as businesses or even communities.
We're going to do this as family. Ayo. I want to thank everybody who brought your opio, your keiki into this room. We always talk about youth, and then we never see them. So thank you for bringing the children. All of you, they need to learn from our behavior. Ayo.
Ayo. Mahalo, everyone.
I'd like to call upon Kalani to make the closing remarks for our distinguished panel. And then we'll go on to the breadfruit cultural economic context of the Pacific and beyond.
It's a pleasure to be here and to see a lot of people that I know, especially after these 2 years of us all being in isolation. It's nice to be back with family. And that's how I feel about everybody that's up here on this panel. We've all known each other a long time. We've been running up this hill for a long, long time. There's only one thing I can say about, because, for, and to this august body of individuals. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all the years and all the tears and all the time. It's so good to see all of you here. Let's keep growing the family. Ayo. Mahalo, yoy.